You've reached Jana Rosenfeld. I'm unavailable at the moment. Please leave a message and I'll call you back shortly. Thank you. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hello, Jana. This is Chris Bennett calling for Dr. Bruce Perry, and I'm glad I got your machine. I'd like to leave a voicemail message, and I'm also recording this in a video so that I can post it on YouTube, and I'll share a link with you so that even if we get cut off here, you can hear the whole message. But it's a critical message. So I have his book with Oprah. I have his book on empathy also. And let's see, as he's acknowledged repeatedly over the years, ADHD has the same symptoms as post-traumatic stress, and so does bipolar disorder. So millions of kids who are in abusive environments or their parents are going through a divorce, like Robert Rodriguez, the producer in Texas of Spy Kids. So I'll get into that in a minute. But we're pulling together a team of 10 super celebrities. I met with Danny Trejo a couple weeks ago and invited him. I invited Paris Hilton, Bella Hadid, a supermodel. She's a friend of Taylor Swift. All of them were diagnosed as having a mental illness when they actually had post-traumatic stress. Danny Trejo's uncle was hyperactive. And Danny asked in his autobiography, what if he'd gotten help before he spent 35 years in San Quentin? So we're coming together to acknowledge these facts, and that chart that I sent you in 2008. I've been sending you a link to my testimony to the Texas senators in 2008. Did you get that yet? Did you see it yet? It's on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/newplanettech. So the Forgotten Children Report, Carol Keaton Strayhorn. I'm working with her ex-husband, maybe with her sons very soon. So she wrote in 2004 when her sons were in the White House. One of them was running Medicare and Medicaid, the people that control the drugs for all the foster kids. It said kids are getting diagnosed with all kinds of labels and then put on all kinds of drugs in bad combinations while they're in abusive environments. Okay, so it didn't change one iota. Were you involved in that at all? Not as far as I could tell. Okay, but now's the time. So I went down to Carol Keaton Strayhorn's house a couple years ago. I dropped off my testimony. I met her son. I've known her father for 20 years because 20 years ago, he got my dad's book into the White House, tried to create a meeting with Dr. Dean Ornish and my dad, who was a professor of medicine at UCLA, to reform the medical system, but it got all rejected as their mom's report did. So they did nothing. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to her sons again, Dr. Mark McClellan. I've got their dad on board. I've been talking to him for over 20 years about these issues. So his ex-wife and his wife are gravely ill from bad medical care and undiagnosed post-traumatic stress with symptoms like hypertension, which they just give drugs for. Okay, so we're looking for 10 people like you to examine their medical care and reassess it and see if there's hope and take that advice into the medical system. So Oprah said she'd do backflips. Okay, I don't think she can do those, so we're not going to require that, but we're having an event and we're inviting her. My friend knows her cousin and already sent a message a few months ago. My good friends in Maui met with her assistant. They need a healing for post-traumatic stress.
The maximum time permitted for recording your message. If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to message review. Hello, Jan. It's Chris Bennett calling for Dr. Bruce Perry. And I'm glad I got your machine. I'd like to leave a voicemail message. And I'm also recording this in a
I'm going to review this
so that I can
completely just to make sure it's...
YouTube, and I'll share a link with
Doesn't
you.
matter, I guess.
Even if we get cut off here, you can hear the whole message. But you've pressed an incorrect key. You have reached the maximum time permitted for recording your message. To send your message, thank you. Your message has been sent. Goodbye.
Okay, here it is. So, further details, Dr. Perry. I've been sending messages to you since 2008. I spoke to Jana, maybe, how many times? 6 times over the past 10 years. 4 to 6. I've sent dozens of at least a dozen emails with my updates. Wasn't time, it wasn't right, it wasn't part of God's plan, I guess, so whatever. It's starting now, okay? We're coming together. I'm making a lot of progress. So, when I was growing up in Palos Verdes, Rolling Hills Estates, one of the top 10 richest cities in America in the 1960s and 70s, Danny Trejo was down in one of the poor cities. I didn't really figure out which one yet. There was gangs, there was violence, there was drugs, and broken families. So, consequences was he got on the wrong track. His uncle was on the wrong track, involved with gangs, robbery. So robbery, they got caught a few times before the big crimes. They were skipping school, obviously. So nothing happened, no intervention. That must have been the 1950s and 60s. So same thing with me when I was going to school up in the, richest city in America. Violence in our families. My family, my dad had a problem. Anger every day almost. A lot of good things. Okay, numerous advantages. He was positive most of the time. But these intensities of, chronic anger, very destructive to us. And the symptoms were there. So I'm going to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade with Chuck Norris's 2 sons. I can remember clearly sitting there in class. There was 2 teachers at Rolling Hills Country Rancho Vista. It was 2 teachers. One was really, really nice, Mrs. Calvert, like really nice and loving. Mrs. Vandekamp, as far as I remember, was angry, sometimes angry. So I can remember sitting in her classroom and being scared and then going into a dreamland and feeling much better in a fantasy land, daydreaming. And then, so the messages would come back, the report cards, the yearly reports. Chris is daydreaming in class. Something's going on. It's a big mystery, though. They didn't know. So the biggest secret on the planet, that's what I'm trying to break the news on. And, it really should just take 24 hours. Within 24 hours. This information just should be passing around, spreading like wildfire. The biggest secret on the planet, and I got 9 after that, that can save a lot of kids and adults. Save a lot of grief. Save the adults who are in those families that are causing the problem, that have a worse problem. So, example number 1. Uvalde, Texas, a little over a year ago. This teenager, 17 years old, just maybe turned 18 in high school. He got a gun. When he turned 18, he went to high school and he shot over 20 kids and a couple teachers. Matthew McConaughey used to go there, so he spoke out. He went to the White House and he spoke out for good 10 minutes, on and on about, we really got to do something about the gun problem. Okay, he didn't mention the bullying problem. He didn't mention the suicidal kids problem. He didn't mention the depression problem. He didn't mention the substance abuse problem, which is a reaction to the bullying problem. He didn't mention the broken families, the divorces, the family violence, the bullying, the community violence, the poverty, the hunger. Millions of kids are going hungry and they get diagnosed as having a mental illness and then put on drugs, forced. So, should be a simple matter. It's all here in this 10-minute video. Put this video on your Twitter. Millions of people see it. Okay, you'll see my chart. I put together a chart 20 years ago that shows the symptoms for ADHD and bipolar disorder are identical to the symptoms for PTSD and stress, which there's a list of symptoms of stress in my dad's book, published in 1984 by Doubleday. Difficulty concentrating and difficulty with the memory. Millions of kids are going hungry. Let me say it again. It's the stupidest thing on the planet. How stupid can we be? Millions of kids are going hungry. If the cafeteria people sneak some food to them, okay, they can get fired. It's happened multiple times. Just do a Google search. Then they can't concentrate. They can't think straight. They don't show up. They ditch school. They can get thrown in jail. Their parents can get thrown in jail. They can get fined for truancy. But our ignorant leaders refuse to connect the dots and fix the hunger problem so that every single kid automatically has a variety of incredibly tasty and healthy foods automatically anytime so that they're never going hungry. Okay? And sum it all up, Jesus Christ came here to end hunger. What was the last thing he said after he came back from the dead? Feed my lambs, feed my sheep, feed my people. What he said over and over is love your neighbor as yourself. That means if your neighbor's hungry, that's not good. We better figure that one out. Okay? And there's easy solutions. So, why are we here? For the last 20 years, I've been trying to get this message out to people, and I've been blocked and stopped, ripped off, okay, disrupted dozens of times, but everything's coming together now. So, the bottom line is, anybody who cares about kids, this is an invitation to join our task force and just help us spread the word. We're going to create something called a Summit of Peacemakers at the Palazzo di Amor. It's a 25-acre, beautiful mansion in Beverly Hills, owned by Jeff Green, a billionaire in Florida. He ran for governor down there, lost, but he talked a lot about education, I think. He wanted to make a difference, so this is his opportunity. Okay, we're going to just simply get together and talk about the truth. It's a revolutionary act in this country at this point in time. Okay, it's harder to get the truth out than Nazi Germany 100 years ago, is in my experience. Harder. And I got the proof. So, come together, all right? You can be the news person. You can be the Paul Revere. You could be the hero. All right? The news people won't report. I met with Phil Schuman of Fox News in LA 3 times. I got it on video. Gave him my stuff that could revolutionize the healthcare system. I'm the top whistleblower on what's wrong and what needs to go right. So, the Forgotten Children Report. There's a couple problems we're focused on the start. Forgotten Children Report, written by Carol Keaton Strayhorn in 2004. Her 2 sons were in the White House. Dr. Mark McClellan, he was running Medicare and Medicaid. And then the FDA. Okay, every oversight thing on this problem. I met Bar McClellan, their dad, because he wrote a book about the JFK assassination. I contacted him because my friend worked for JFK in the White House for the CIA. And I got a recording of him talking about what really happened there. So, contacted him. My friend was still alive back then. I told him about my friend, what I was learning. So, he used to work for Johnson's attorneys. He's an attorney. So I started talking to him. He tried to arrange a summit in the White House with his sons with my dad's book on health, which can reverse almost any health problem. Same way Dr. Dean Ornish just came out with a book called Reverse It, how most health problems can be reversed with healthy living. So it's a similar program. So there's two super critical problems, which are slam dunk home run, obvious. Either you're in and you're out. Either you can get it or you can't. It's an urgent problem that affects you and a lot of people you know. That's poisoning them and killing them. And if you look in your record of the funerals you've been to, I bet you most of them are to blame for this problem, for one of these two problems. Okay, there's two critical problems. Millions of kids are getting diagnosed as mentally ill when they just have stress. Okay, so number two, millions of seniors are getting bad combinations of drugs. So I have a video with Biden and Obama and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Senator Rockefeller, Senator Chuck Schumer. Long list, 19 leaders have been running healthcare. Kathleen Sebelius and the current guy running healthcare, plus Biden, as I said. So saying millions of seniors are taking 16 drugs in bad combinations that's poisoning and killing them and bankrupting Medicare. Poisoning and sickening over years where they suffer and die and their family watches. I'm elaborating a little bit. So 2000, my dad, that was his full-time job. 7 nursing homes, 70 hours a week, visiting them, where he had dozens and dozens of patients that were seniors taking a whole bunch of drugs that were they're dying from the thing that the drugs are supposed to help. Oh, you got diabetes? Here, take this drug. It's supposed to help you. 3 years later, you're suffering and dying, and they cut off your leg, and your parents are your family's all sitting around you crying, trying to argue about, what to do. My dad told me the whole thing. It was so horrible for him, it made him sick and caused a life-threatening heart problem. Okay, it forced him to retire. So, atrial fibrillation. His doctors put him on a bunch of drugs, flecainide. It was getting worse and worse and worse. Dr. David Canham said, you might need heart surgery. I'm pioneering heart surgery called catheter ablation, where they burn away the nerves on your heart. See, after years of stress, you get all these nerves in there that are overstimulating the heart and making it go crazy. And so they burn it off. Okay. So that scared the hell out of me. So I went to UCLA's medical library, started updating my dad's book, ended up with a big stack that said atrial fibrillation is caused by stress. His doctors had not told him that, so he was working himself to death. Okay. Why was he taking care of nursing home patients that are taking a bunch of drugs? Because 10 years earlier, they defunded his healthy living program that was the solution and the cure for all that at Healthcare Partners Medical Group, one of the biggest private groups of doctors in the country that my dad was the founding medical director of. So, he was the founding medical director of the Pritikin Longevity Center back in the 1970s, still in a Trump-owned hotel on Miami Beach. Longest profitable healthy living program in the world. A bunch of our leaders have done it. Congressman Henry Waxman. So they're alive today after these incompetent UC San Francisco, UC Irvine, UC Riverside doctors poisoned my dad with 2 bad drugs behind our back against our wishes. Okay, he spent the next 2 years suffering here. I couldn't get him into that program. It cost $30,000 for a month. Okay, that's what he needed. So, we're on a mission. We're going to cause a massive shift. We're going to accomplish exactly what some of my favorite doctors proposed to our leaders around 2010. They all testified to I think it was Senator Tom Harkin. He was in the room for that 16 drugs video. Okay, he was also at a hearing with Dr. Dean Ornish, Dr. Oz, Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Wayne Jonas, Dr. Herbert Benson, Dr. Andrew Weil, at all of our best universities. They said, please, dear God, senators, dear senators, please shift some of the $4 trillion going into sickness care, which puts half of Americans on drugs, which don't really work that well, have side effects, make people sicker, lead to worse and worsening illness and bankrupting our country, bankrupting healthcare, rising costs. Please shift it into free healthy living programs like the ones we are offering. So, no. Oh, I'll try. Hugs and high fives all around, guys. I love you. We're going to do it. We're going to try. Okay. 3 meetings later, oops, sorry. Republicans said no again. It's the damn Republicans. But I tried. So, hugs and high fives all around. I got some good publicity out of it. Okay? I got to look like the knight in shining armor who just got slayed by the evil, dragon. All right? It's them damn Republicans. We got to get them out of there. That's what we got to do. Someday we're going to have free mental health care. We're going to have free, free lunches for all the kids and everything. It's going to be like Candyland. All right? Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Okay? All right? But not now. Sorry. 10 years later. Okay? I posted that 9 years ago, that video with 16 drugs. All right? 9 years ago on YouTube. And still not fixed. I got a long printouts, hundreds and hundreds of pages of their dozens and dozens of attempts to fix the problem. Coordinated care, that's the key word. All right? They still don't even have a computer system. Well, they have a secret computer system which, manages all the charges and everything, okay? But they don't have a little line in there that red flags, this guy is on too many medicines and it's in a bad combination. What the hell are you doing? It's an emergency. Fix it. No, that's not in the program. Okay? Free healthy living programs. My mom in the next room is hypertension. After 2 years of my dad's suffering in the next room and we had to take care of him, suffering and then dying, all right? Her blood pressure went through the roof. She is in danger. The doctors put her on 3 lame-ass drugs that my dad warns don't work in his book. A longtime friend of mine, she was taking one of them, and it caused her legs to swell up like huge, all right? And the doctor kept saying, that's normal. Okay, it's not from the drugs. Finally, she figured out and quit, but it's a known side effect. All right. My mom had to go to the hospital a few months ago. We thought she was by dying. She was passing out and unconscious from the drugs. They worked. She took a hot shower and it made her blood pressure go way, way down and she went unconscious. She had to go to the hospital. Okay. So we are just, why is she taking them? Why is she taking them? She saw that video on 16 drugs. If they're putting out 16 drugs and they're just ignoring it, okay, the fact is, the big, big secret, most of those drugs don't even work. My dad figured that out a long time ago. And a bunch of other doctors like Dean Ornish. But people like Dean Ornish and Andrew Weil, they're blowing the whistle in the corners and not everybody's hearing it, all right? So we're going to bring them together, blow the whistle so that the whole planet hears it. Bottom line is this. Okay, I said it in some of the other videos. Why do we all have toxic stress overload? 95% of Americans get hypertension. As they grow older, at some point in their life, the experts who created the concept of post-traumatic stress in the 1980s know, and I got it in their books, hypertension is a symptom of post-traumatic stress. So from a young age, kids start getting negative experiences, toxic levels. Then they go to school. There's a lot of shit happens there. Broken relationships, etc., etc. They don't know how to clear all that out. They could clear it all out if they got the knowledge about how to clear it all out. So that's what we're doing. We're coming together, to break the story, the good news. How do you clear out all that stuff, get your health back? So I found dozens of health experts who know how to do it, and we're just going to bring them together to talk about it. So where am I going? How can I wrap this up in under 30 minutes? Let me think for a minute. So I lost track of who this was to. Dr. Bruce Perry, primarily in the beginning. And I'm going to share this with a bunch of celebrities, a few of them that I've talked to. Tracy Reiner and I just talked recently again. She said that she got a call by some producer that wanted to do a documentary, and I think it was on health, and she wants to work with me on it. So I don't know anything about it yet, but of course she knows Rob Reiner really well, obviously. And Bruce Perry, you work with Rob Reiner many, many times. Okay, one of them was on the addiction cigarette thing, raising billions of dollars for programs that were going to help people stop smoking and create PSAs against smoking. Well, I think a quarter of Americans still smoke, so I think you know this. Okay, it came down to one thing for me. I distilled all the research. Bad news stress turns off happy chemicals in our brains. Bad news stress turns off happy chemicals in our brains. And so, like, if something bad happens to you, it turns off your happy chemicals. And if something really bad happens, then you have a bad memory, which you keep thinking about. Then it chronically starts to reduce the happy chemicals in your brain and your body. Dopamine. Let's just talk about dopamine for one. Okay, so you're walking around with no dopamine. So bad news stress turns off happy chemicals in our brain. Then we turn to junk food, nicotine, alcohol, and illegal drugs. And legal drugs to turn them back on. Antidepressants. Stress is contagious. You know that. Post-traumatic stress is contagious. Emotions are contagious. Okay, so we have an epidemic, a contagious epidemic of stress, toxic stress flowing through the human population globally. And most people don't know it. So hypertension is contagious. Tension is contagious. If you don't know that, anybody's watching, just call me on the phone. I'll yell at you. It'll just take you 10 seconds to figure it out, I guarantee you. 2 seconds for your autonomic nervous system to figure it out. All right? Check your blood pressure. It'll go through the roof. Just give it time. All right? So it's contagious. If you're 1,000 miles, doesn't matter how far you're away, if you call me on the phone, we can make it happen. All right? Stress is contagious. If somebody you care about is suffering out there and you're thinking about them every day and you never call them because they bring you down, you're thinking about them and your stress is going up. It's contagious invisibly thousands of miles away. If they die and you think they're living in hell and you think about it every day, okay, it's contagious posthumously. Stress. It's in Al Gore's book. Lies. What is it called? Something about lies. Okay, so it says he cites multiple researchers. That was 20 years ago when he wrote the book, saying stress and post-traumatic or stress are contagious. That author Perlman, that lady. Okay, you know these people. So we're gonna bring all those people together. They're all your best friends, and break the story. So Oprah wrote in her book, and obviously you agreed, she would do backflips to make healthcare trauma informed. Well, we're still at ground zero. All my family members are sick. They go into the doctors. The doctors never say anything. They never ask about stress. So my mom's taking the drugs. It lowered her blood pressure. She watches garbage TV all day, murder and mayhem, 3/4 of the day. Oprah's channel with all those Dateline murder mysteries. How far has Oprah come from her original vision of something that makes a difference? Okay. But just look at who owns the Nielsen ratings, okay, if you want to know who's pulling strings there. All right? So, Black Rock and Vanguard. We're going to talk about it. That's in the other video. So, but anyway, all right, we're bringing it all together. So your daughter's over in near the Grand Canyon. She lives over there. She's gotten pretty well known as a guide, and she was trying to bring attention to the problem of poverty there and the horses being mistreated. And I read about it in the news, and I thought, well, what she doesn't understand, you know, it was the Havasupai, I think. They have the northern Grand Canyon as their territory. So I have friends in the Hualapai tribe. They have the southern half of the Grand Canyon, and Peach Springs, Arizona. So the thing she was complaining about was valid. They had these, you know, poor, tired horses, overheated, you know, undernourished, maybe, you know, dilapidated stalls. Those people are all poor, really poor, decades, hundreds of years of poverty, residual post-traumatic stress from the Trail of Tears 150 years ago. So that may seem like a long time, it is, but when they kill a third of your tribe, now they're down to like 3,000. They'd be 100,000 if the massacre hadn't happened. Then after that, starting about 100 years ago, the US government started kidnapping all the children and forcing them into these abusive homes, just like Paris Hilton was at. Okay? Just like the Forgotten Children Report, places like that, where they get molested and abused and starved and beaten and tortured and sometimes killed. Okay, killed, definitely. Okay, so they kidnapped them at gunpoint. The US government, God bless those US military cavalry, they just show up there. Oh, we're going to take all your kids today. Yep, 1,000 kids. Yep, we're taking all of them. Let's take 100 today. We'll come back in a week. Oh, you don't want to let them go? Boom, boom, boom. There's 3 of them dead. Still don't want to let them go? Boom, 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 boom. Now there's 10. Okay, thank you very much. In the next village, they don't even have to ask. Okay, they heard the bad news. So that's exactly what happened. And there's never been any apology. There's been a barely apology. That's about it. So that went on for 50 years or so. Then because of the cycle of poverty, then they start, once they got rid of that, then they're taking them away because, oh, well, you've got a crack problem. Oh, well, gee, who started the crack problem? Who started bringing the cocaine in here in the 1980s? President Clinton is what I heard. Okay, whether or not that's right, okay, there was a movie about it with Tom Cruise, American Made. There's been a dozen books about it. Okay, my friend who worked for JFK, he also worked for George Bush and Ronald Reagan and the CIA and, you know, the Iran-Contra thing. And so it's all very plausible. But it may seem like I'm straying. I'm working with Kyle Gordon. So the lady I met 35 years ago, this part of the tribe, she ran the health system there for 20 years. So for the last 10 years, I was talking to her about healing the whole tribe. See, I've learned a lot about the tribe, so that's what I'm trying to share with Dr. Perry's daughter. She had a great idea. The way to help the horses is to help the people. And I sent her a message 8 or 10 years ago on that, when she was there having this problem. Okay, she was bringing a whole bunch of attention to it, and it was really pissing them off because to them, they were being characterized as abusive and neglectful. And the problem was chronic poverty, inadequacy, okay, which all that's being orchestrated by our leaders. You know, they should have had a ton of water 30 years ago flowing through there and making it all green and beautiful so it attracts a lot more tourists and, you know, it's like a paradise, all right, but it never happened. They finally just got a water settlement that was just puny, okay, but 50 miles away upstream, there's a bunch of alfalfa growers that are using 10 times as much water as they got to grow alfalfa and, you know, sell it to cattle ranchers and, horse breeders and, all over. A bunch of rich families using up 90% of the water or something obscene like that. So there's a whole list of things that we're going to come together. Okay, I've been talking to my friend who was running the healthcare for 10 years about this. So 35 years ago, we went up in the mountains and we had a healing experience for 10 days up in the mountains. It was about healing post-traumatic stress and come together, a group therapy program with exercise and eating right, and it was just amazing. So that was one of the models that's what we want to create there at the Grand Canyon. So I'm working with Kyle Gordon's family. He was in the blockbuster movie series Twilight. He's probably the most famous Native American. If you look at the numbers of people that have, are like fans. So I've been talking to his sister-in-law and his brothers and his mother and his dad for the last 2 years about healing the whole community. And my friend Sandra Yellowhawk there, who ran the healthcare system, I've been talking to her for 10 years about healing the whole community. That's what they need. 60 or 70% of the deaths are from alcohol. A bunch of them are from all kinds of drugs. They're all being put on a bunch of drugs for depression and high blood pressure, and and they're all traumatized. They're getting zero help with their traumas. Zero. So I've been working on inviting Zachary Levi. Maybe you heard of him. He's the best person, famous person that I've ever heard talking about post-traumatic stress. He wrote a whole book about it, his healing. He went through a month-long program, which is about healing post-traumatic stress. So, since most Americans have it, wow, at a $5 trillion healthcare budget right now, if we spend $1 trillion on healthy living programs like the Pritikin Longevity Center, Pritikin.com. My friend gave that proposal to Donald Trump Jr., who's a friend of his for a long time, and he's going to give it to Donald Trump. He just met with him a week ago in LA. He was here for a visit. So, things are lining up. At a $5 trillion sickness care, if we spend $1 trillion on healthy living programs, which includes these post-traumatic stress treatment programs like Zachary Levi went to, we'll create jobs in every single community in the United States. Jobs, the inner city, every single community, which will contribute vastly to reducing stress in those communities and trauma. The influx of money. It'll create other jobs as the money circulates through those economies. So just check out the Kroc community centers. Ray Kroc, after decades of, moderately unhealthy food, he died, and his widow donated several $1 billion to the Kroc Foundation, and they opened up these massive sports complexes with every single kind of sport, where it was cheap to get in there for people in the community. Ice skating, roller skating, track, gymnastics, aerobics, basketball, baseball, racquetball, everything. Healthy living programs, a library, a chapel. I talk about God and the Bible and Christianity, and I'm going to talk about the Muslim religion, which has the same curative possibility, and the Jewish religion, which has the same curative possibility if you know how to understand and apply it to your health and the people around you. So I'll go through that in some of the other videos. Okay, but I'm meandering for a purpose. These are all parts of the puzzle. So, and these are all things in the health books, in Dean Ornish's health book, the other experts. So we're going to do an event at the Grand Canyon, and we're going to get the whole world's attention. We're going to bring together a bunch of celebrities to announce a series of the most critical truths the biggest secrets on the planet that could radically change our country and other countries and the cultures in a positive way. Okay? So, just your information. All right? The information in your book with Oprah. What happened? That's the key. That's the most important question of all time. Taylor Swift wrote a song, Why Do You Gotta Be So Mean? Somebody must have pushed you down and made you small. But the cycle ends right now because you can't lead me down that road and you don't know what you don't know. So it's a perfect song, one of the most important songs of all time, because it describes the biggest problem on the planet, the cause of all addictions, all violence, all abuse, most suffering, is there's a range of post-traumatic stress. 0 to 100. As you get more and more up there on the scale, you get sicker and sicker physically, but then some people, they get angry and angrier and angrier, and they become chronically angry and they spread the anger around. And, I've been losing my temper too, okay? Because I have been exposed to other people's anger and it gets inside of you, and then you get short-tempered. Okay, so I've been struggling with it too. It's affecting all of us. Okay, but I know the cure, and I'm bringing together an event to share the cure. So the cure, according to Dr. Charles Figley, your colleague, is education and understanding, which includes diagnosis. So President George Bush Jr. said, if you don't diagnose a problem correctly, you're never going to fix it. So that is so true. So 20 years ago, when Bar McClellan, his ex-wife wrote the Forgotten Children Report, it said throughout Texas, she was the Texas comptroller, throughout Texas, there's tens of thousands, I don't know, was it hundreds of thousands of kids in foster care. They have been abused. They're in situations where they are getting abused. They go into doctors and psychiatrists who diagnose a variety of mental illness labels, which justifies a variety of drugs for those mental illnesses. Then when they get side effects, they give them other drugs to counteract that. And then they end up coming up to like 5, 6, 10 drugs at once. They end up switching drugs when it started making them loopy. Okay. So she tried to intervene, blow the whistle, and her sons in the White House didn't do anything. Or they tried, they brought it up with President Bush. We got a problem. You want to check this out? Oh, yeah, guys, we can't do anything about that because of X, Y, and Z. I would love to hear what they said. Okay, so now I talked to Bar McClellan. His ex-wife and his current wife are gravely ill from really bad health care, a bunch of drugs that have not worked, and they are sick and maybe near death. Okay, it may be too late, but I said to him, I don't even want to hear what's going on with them. I want to get a solution. Okay, and we're going to have a list of alternative medicine doctors that are as smart as my dad to look at their situation, figure out what went wrong, if anything went right, if anything could help now to do a better job. Okay, Carol Keaton Strayhorn for the last 2 years has been suffering at home. Her poor son, the other brother, has been taking care of her, just like I did with my dad. In 2008, I testified to the Texas State Senate. They had an 8-hour hearing about the terrible state of the foster care system. That was 4 years after the Forgotten Children Report. So I went in there and I testified to them. I said, kids are being misdiagnosed as having a mental illness when they're just getting abused in their home, or maybe their parents are having a problem. I said, in the 4-minute video, you can watch it. You can watch the 8-hour video. You can watch the 4-minute video of me. Okay, I was there for most of it. Okay, you can. So I said in the video, at Starbucks here in Austin, I met this girl who worked there, and she had dropped out of college, and she said, "Oh, I have ADHD." And I said, "Do you know that has the same symptoms as stress?" "No, I didn't know that." Yeah, let me show you this chart. We talked a little more. Yeah, what was going on in your life at the time? Well, let's see. My parents were arguing a lot, yelling. And yeah, I said, what else is going on? Bullied at school. I didn't really get the details on how bad it was. All right, put on the drugs, misdiagnosed in high school. 5 or 6 years later, she was working at Starbucks, regularly smoking pot. Okay, that's how you deal with the symptoms. When all the bad news, stress, parents go through a divorce, turns off all the happy chemicals in your brain, pot turns them on. Okay, believe me, I've been there, done that. All right. So, anyway, nothing to be embarrassed about. Okay, look at the world around you. Stress is contagious. I got 6 books here that clearly explain how stress is contagious. My dad wrote it right in here. He said, don't you know that when you watch the news and you hear about that terrorist threat in the Middle East, it drives your blood pressure up? Yeah. When all those people in Palestine are having bombs dropped on them, and you're watching the news and you're thinking about it, and, for some people, they're from Palestine or they're part Palestinian, okay? Or the Jewish people, they're thinking about the bombs dropping, the massacre, etc., etc. It's contagious by thousands of miles. So we're coming together to acknowledge that fact, okay? The biggest secret on the planet. I've been working on breaking that story for 20 years. So my friend in the CIA introduced me to Chaplain George Russell Barber. He was the last living chaplain who landed on Normandy Beach on D-Day. And so I met him in 2000. I got his Bible right here. He wrote the date in there and his signature. And so he was a friend of the CIA guy. I go through all the story in another video. But anyway, I was doing all the research on stress and health, which that was when I discovered Dr. Perry's studies, which say that kids are getting misdiagnosed as having a mental illness when they really just have trauma. Okay, weren't your studies out by 2000 when I was going to UCLA's medical library? All right, so I found Dr. Figley's for sure. I ended up copying dozens of his, Bessel van der Kolk, buying their books. Okay, 8 years later, I contacted you by email, Dr. Bruce Perry, and you responded to me. I said it all in my email. Millions of Americans have this situation, and it's causing all kinds of illnesses like heart disease. So you emailed me back. Yeah, Chris, have you heard of the ACEs studies? The biggest secret on the planet? No, you didn't say that. Biggest secret on the planet. Okay. 2008. Now, 16 years later, it's still the biggest secret on the planet. Okay, it's not required reading by every doctor. So we're going to come together with a task force, share this information with the whole world, make it required reading by all the doctors. In the last 5 years of my dad's sickness, 10 years, since he got dementia 10 years ago, I've asked dozens of doctors about Dr. Dean Ornish, the most famous doctor in the world who has a cure, famous among a minority. Okay, 90% of them never heard of Dr. Dean Ornish. Definitely never heard of Dr. Bruce Perry or Dr. Charles Figley. Dr. Charles Figley is the top expert in the world on post-traumatic stress, in my opinion. Okay, since he's one of the creators of the concept, and he was the first president of the International Society of Traumatic Stress Studies, which is that group that's the most important group, been studying it for decades. Okay, he has the longest resume and the most published studies, and he's the most talked about of all of them. So After 9/11, I flew out to Florida with one of his books, Burnout in Families. And I said, Dr. Figley, I went to lunch with him after going to a seminar, was with his new wife. And I said, you're the top expert in the world on post-traumatic stress. He had a big smile. Okay, with his new wife. Okay, I need your help to share the cure with the whole world because you know the cure and everybody in my family has it. 20 years later, still hasn't happened. It's about to happen though. My dad died because of post-traumatic stress and bad medical care. My aunt died because of post-traumatic stress and undiagnosed, untreated, and bad medical care. Both of them a year ago. Right? And I got other family members who are circling the drain. So my invitation is, we're going to break this story. I'm inviting you to invite Oprah and Rob Reiner. So, Tracy Reiner, 6 or so years ago, we were talking really serious about doing this. Everything I'm saying, we're going to create a TV show about healthy living because I've had this idea called the Health Project, where you have 100 people living in a beautiful hotel for a month, like the Pritikin program, to exercise and eat right and bring their stress down in primetime TV. So I've been working on that for a long time. Also in 2008, I got my proposal for that show to Senator Obama and a bunch of his friends at the Center for American Progress with John Podesta. So, P.J. Crowley, who went on to become the Deputy of Secretary of State under Hillary Clinton, P.J. Crowley loved my idea for a TV show called The Health Project, which gets everybody in America healthy, and The Mission, which puts attention on critical problems and delivers radical solutions to them. So he loved it. He wrote me back a full-page email saying, Chris, I want to be part of this. I want to help you with this. I want to introduce you to these 5 staff members at the Center for American Progress that I think they're going to want to help you. This can impact environmental problems like global warming. So I sent the email to 20 people at that organization. John Podesta became the transition manager for Obama when he won. He got to handpick the cabinet and all that. So instead of going with the healthy living vision and my dad's book, Podesta suggested and Obama appointed Margaret Hamburg to run the FDA. And her husband went on to earn hundreds of billions of dollars on pharmacy stocks. So it's the Renaissance Fund. This attorney, Larry Klayman, later sued, for racketeering on that issue. Like, if you're in charge of regulating the drug companies and your husband is earning billions of dollars with his friends on Pfizer stock and all those stocks, isn't that a conflict? And then they're giving money to Obama and all these senators for their campaigns. Renaissance Fund. Okay, and the drug companies. Okay, so all that big old cesspool. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. So back to Tracy Reiner. We were talking about it. She wanted to do it. She loved the idea. Her husband had PTSD he's a veteran. Her mom had PTSD, Penny Marshall. She said, my mom has pre-verbal traumas. That's what Tracy told me. And I said, pre-verbal traumas? I haven't heard that before. Oh, I see. It makes sense. Okay. Then I ordered her autobiography. It came in the mail. Penny Marshall's autobiography. Right up there it says, my mother was nuts. So I only read a little bit of it, all right? Her mother from a young age would say, you know, Penny, you're not very attractive, so you got to be funny. And you got to learn how to dance and entertain people because you didn't get the looks, you didn't get, you know, you're an ugly duckling, or whatever the words were. So that laid heavily on her heart. Then in her 20s, when she was getting into show business, she went in for a commercial, and then she got cast for a role, and then the director referred to her as the homely one. Okay, so, you know, I really loved Laverne and Shirley from a young age. You know, I was real interested in her. I really liked her a lot, and I didn't see anything wrong with her. Okay? I can't say I was, you know, had a crush on every female character that I loved. All right? Lucille Ball. Okay, I can't say I was had a crush on every one of them at that age. Actually, few of them I did. Okay, but, you know, it really wasn't like, it's, you know what? Here's the big secret. Ugly is a lie. It's something that abusive people make up to say that person's ugly. What kind of person would say that? You think God says that? You think a fair, kind person, you know, says that person's ugly? It's an insult that people spread out there, which is like, you know, on a par with nigger or kike or, you know, any one of those like slanders. And then people end up going around, okay? It's something that's embedded in the culture, in the, you know, entertainment, right? It burdens people. Layers, okay? But this is important for your book. So your book, you know, I don't know if it mentioned that, but there's these layers of trauma. You know, I got a chart of 100 celebrities who have been on a mission to find the solution for their depression or anxiety or whatever. The third of them have been misdiagnosed as having a phony mental illness, like Catherine Zeta-Jones, Carrie Fisher, you know. And they weren't told the symptoms are identical to stress. Justin Bieber, Bella Hadid, Paris Hilton. There's a long list of them. You can see the chart. So we're going to talk to all of them and share the good news of what the cure is that Dr. Figley has, that Bruce Perry talks about in his book with Oprah. So the beginning of the cure is to acknowledge the existence of the affliction and to acknowledge and learn about the path to the cure. And part of the path to the cure is asking, what happened to you? So when I was in 1980, my dad graduated from UCLA with honors in the 60s. I got kicked out in the 1987 for getting D's and F's. It was highly traumatic, getting kicked out of UCLA after less than a year. So I was getting D's and F's. Nobody came to me and said, what happened to you? What's going on with you? Can we help you? How can you kick people out of that school and crush their dreams without even trying? Okay, so we got to break the story. Okay, we don't live in Nazi Germany. We live in the United States of America. We got free speech. We got freedom of the press. Since they won't give us free speech in the press, all we got to do is come together with 10 celebrities who have been impacted by this problem negatively and who want to break the story. So Ryan Garcia is one of them, Paris Hilton, Bella Hadid, Danny Trejo. Each one of them has a story about misdiagnosis, suffering horrifically. And they're on a mission to fix the problem. So you're either in or you're out. It's clear as day. We're coming together to share the good news. What's the path to the cure? I guarantee you, if we break the story of the biggest secret on the planet, that millions of kids are getting diagnosed as being insane when they just have toxic stress from abuse or a broken family. A family that's having a problem where they're not getting the solution. It happened to me. Two more stories. I may have already mentioned this a little bit. I just want to reiterate it. My dad had a violence problem. Probably started from, he was going through medical school. And they work, those poor doctors, 24-hour shifts, which is total insanity. You work them into a bad temper, okay? And that's when he first grabbed my brother when he was 1 year old and shook him up against the wall because my brother was crying. Okay, so that toxic stress overload, slave driving the doctors, making them sick. Then they go home, they freak out, they commit violence, and it changes them, and then they start justifying it, and then they start doing it more and more until the divorce. So it was bad enough that I had amnesia. I can't remember much. So the reports would come. I was in school with Chuck Norris's kids. I mentioned that earlier, I think. Okay, I'm having memory problems even now from the toxic stress overload. Okay. So teachers don't know. What if they had known? They could say, hey, parents, what's going on with you? We're having marital problems. I'm thinking about divorce. Okay. My husband has a problem. He gets angry every day. There's screaming and yelling. He picks on my son. He bullies him. He yells at him. He, made him eat on the floor yesterday. Okay. Then they go into counseling and they get family counseling. So according to Dr. Figley, that's a critical part of the cure. You deal with, okay, can you imagine if instead of going to a psychiatrist every week or a psychologist for an hour of $300 an hour counseling so that somebody could listen to you, your whole family member could learn, all your family could learn how to do that? Okay, we don't learn that in school. We sit in school for 12, 13 or more years. We listen, we learn how to listen and take notes and memorize things, and we never learn how to talk to the people around us. We rarely are asked to talk ourselves and share our own experience, except under high pressure situations where it's pass or fail and you're going to get a grade and you might, okay. We don't learn how to do those things, okay? Communicate to the class, communicate to each other. We're retarded in those departments, right? That's why people get all stopped up emotionally and they develop hypertension over many years. So you're one of the people who knows all of this. We've never talked, all right? But my goal is we're going to create a summit of peacemakers. We're going to come together. Maybe you can attend in person. Maybe you can attend by Zoom. And we're going to record the information so we can share it with a much wider audience so the entire planet learns we have a contagious epidemic of toxic stress and it can be solved. If we all learn about it, we create a TV show about it where we're learning about it. We require the medical system to learn about it. All the doctors and the nurses and the psychologists and the psychiatrists. I have friends who are taking antidepressants. They have to go into a psychiatrist once every 3 months, pay a bunch of money. There's zero counseling requirement. Those people don't even know what the cure is. They're not telling people what the cure is. So it's got to stop. Those who can must. Those who have the answers. This is our opportunity to come together. It's unstoppable. 6 of those senators in Texas are still in power. One of them is the current lieutenant governor. After the Uvalde shooting, they all came up with a new report about what can we do to fix the problem. More security in schools. Did they talk about bullying at all? Did they provide free mental health care so that kids who are bullying other kids are freely getting into counseling? No. All right. So are they acknowledging that millions of kids hundreds of thousands in their own schools are taking drugs that don't work when they have toxic stress overload. They're taking amphetamines. Okay? You know that's wrong. You know about the veterans problem of they're getting 5, 6, 10 drugs until they die, and they're not getting what they need. You know Dr. Matthew Friedman. I bet you he's a friend of yours. How many? You've known him for 20 years, right? He's one of the early experts. He's running the veterans system. He's the one who's okaying 10 drugs in bad combinations. I've talked to multiple families whose sons were veterans. They were put on a bunch of drugs in insane combinations for depression and post-traumatic stress and all kinds of ailments until they died from drug toxicity. So I've been contacting them for 10 years now, inviting them to participate. Okay? I'm not talking to you because you're to blame because this information has not gotten out. Okay? I'm talking to you because I'm damn serious. All right? And I know you are too. And it pisses me off that it hasn't been fixed yet. But you know what? These stars are aligning. Stars are aligning. The entire Hawaii needs healing. They need the information about what is the cure. I made dozens of phone calls over there. I've got a bunch of friends there because my sister-in-law was Hawaiian and my brother-in-law is Hawaiian. So they need the information about what is the cure, the information about what's causing the problem, and they need the information about what needs to happen in the whole state to change the situation because it's getting worse and worse. They're up to about 30 or 40 suicides now, according to the insiders that I know in Maui. So, one of my friends there, Eddie Garcia, he's working with Willie Nelson's son and Woody Harrelson and, several other people from Hawaii, Jason Momoa. Okay, but every single one of those people that lost something, they need a massive settlement, like in the millions, within the next very short period of time. That's the key to their healing, not a shoulder to cry on or merely information. So information is part of it. Second part of it is because of this massive trauma that was caused from like 10 major screw-ups of the people running the show over there. Okay, so Hawaiian Electric, they got a lot of money. Oprah lives over there. She's now persona non grata, rightly or wrongly. There's a perception, okay, I think it's wrongly, but on the other hand, okay, I got into it in some other videos. On the other hand, no, let's just focus on the positive here, okay? It's a massive opportunity for her to prove and demonstrate who she really is. So, we're going to talk about what is the solution. That's number one. She has the power to be heard, and she's got the solution in that book. And she's got the power to come together with us and create a focal point that not only is going to be heard in Maui, it's going to be heard globally and make a societal impact. So, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I would really appreciate it, Dr. Bruce Perry, to hear back from you within 24, 48 hours with maybe like a message, less than a minute, just saying, hey, Chris, I watched your hour and 10 minutes, or I watched the first 10 minutes. Okay. I think it's going to be riveting. Your wife, obviously, let's bring that up for all the people that don't know it. What happened to her is a result of this problem, according to all the people that you know really well. Dr. James Gilligan wrote Violence, Reflections on a National Epidemic back in the 1990s. University of Massachusetts professor of psychiatry ran the Massachusetts prison system back in the 1990s. Wrote a whole book saying, hey guys, your places are so violent and despicable and people suffer so badly that it's just a recipe for causing them to get out and be more violent. And therefore, if you follow my model here, where we took care of people, educated them, reduced violence, good food, I don't even know all the things they did, but they created a radical reduction in violence. 1990s. Okay. Danny Trejo, who's invited, who may be watching this soon, he went to San Quentin back, I think right before that, for a year with his uncle. It's all in his autobiography. I may have mentioned this before. Danny Trejo asks in the biography, what if little hyperactive, what's his name? Gilbert, my hyperactive uncle, wouldn't go to school, hyperactive, failed in school. What if he had gotten help? Well, he wouldn't have gotten involved in gangs, drugs, robbery of stores with Danny Trejo. So they both started down the wrong track, went to San Quentin. Danny got out. He got sober. He went through post-traumatic stress healing programs over and over and over again. He got into that business of healing people. His Uncle Gilbert went on to commit a murder and spent 35 years in San Quentin and other places, being subjected to violence, abuse, suffering, by the guards. Okay, competitions. This one against that one. All right, boxing matches. That's the state of the prisons. So, in the 1990s, you and Oprah came together to create that Track All the Predators bill. So all the predators, let's track them. Okay, but what you didn't do at the time, and I'm not blaming you, I blame it on, I think it's all part of God's plan. Okay, if you tried to do something different, the leaders would have shot it down. You did what you could do. Okay, track all the predators. They're still, to this day, not getting any therapy. So, that's the state of the world. That's why we all get hypertension. So, Taylor Swift has 15 to 20 life-threatening stalkers. Taylor Swift and her family. None of them are getting therapy. So in America, because of the laws, after you kill somebody, they'll put you away. But they won't put you in therapy after you kill somebody, and they'll let you out 10 years later so you can do it again. If you threaten to kill somebody, they won't put you in therapy. They won't require therapy. You might go to jail, or you might just get a restraining order and a fine. So Taylor Swift has 15 to 20 life-threatening stalkers. They sent dozens and dozens of notes. I want to kill your family. I'm going to cut them up in little pieces. I'm coming to get you. Okay, all right, it's creeping me out, all right? What really is creepy about it is, are these people that love her music, or they just picked a pretty face out of the crowd, of celebrities? And all right, she has more life-threatening stalkers, I think, than any other celebrity. I love her music. It's hard to imagine somebody sitting there, I love her music, oh, I love that song. I think I want to kill her. I think I want to kill her family. I think I want to cut them up in little pieces, okay? People that want to do those things, I don't think they like your music, Taylor Swift, if you get to see this, okay? So I don't think they like your music because your music is cathartic. It's about love. All right. So anyway, that's another, weird situation. Taylor Swift started talking about Donald Trump, and then she started talking about Marsha Blackburn, who's one of the biggest criminals in Congress. Was it Marsha Blackburn or something like that? Okay. That same congressperson or senator, she was in a hearing a long time ago, 15 years ago, about the terrible state of the mental health system for kids, in which they're going into those camps and they're getting abused for troubled children, the troubled children industry. That's what Paris Hilton's now working on. So she went there in 1998 and she got abused, which I talked about in my other videos. So anyway, I know I'm meandering, but in my opinion, it's everything you've been working on now for 30 years. There's an epidemic of psychopaths out there. So what happened to your wife, people like that are now threatening Taylor Swift, and without consequence, without treatment. So the cure has never been discussed. The cause has never been discussed. Tracy Reiner, I think, is back on board. We spoke again. We were pulling it together. We're going to talk to her mom. As I said, her mom had post-traumatic stress. She said, my mom has post-traumatic stress. That's why she has cancer from smoking. She's overweight. She won't quit smoking. She won't exercise, eat a good diet. She won't take all the steps to heal the cancer because she has post-traumatic stress. So when you have all these pre-verbal traumas, you end up carrying around for the rest of your life this fire inside of you, of bad news stress. I'm ugly. My mom thinks I'm ugly. Okay. Whatever else happened. I don't know what else happened in her family. So, what's happening to most Americans, we have toxic stress overload. If you have hypertension, that's toxic stress overload. How many studies have said that's related to post-traumatic stress? I've got a dozen. I've got dozens. There's a whole book on hypertension. Let's see, is this it right here? Stress and hypertension. Thousands of studies. Okay. Examining the relation between psychological stress and high blood pressure. From all the best universities, Yale University Press. So I got all the research. So let's come together and talk about it, for those who don't believe it. But the ACEs studies, need I say more? You mentioned them in 2008. So if every single person who has one of those afflictions is asked by the doctors in the medical system, what happened to you? What's going on in your life? How's your life? There's a connection between your life and the reality of these circumstances in your life and your blood pressure. These drugs are 100% worthless, and in fact, they are counterproductive if the stress, which is causing the hypertension, continues and it doesn't get released. So we're coming together to say all that. All right? It's in my dad's book, Stress is Contagious. He wrote it in here. If you yell and scream, which anger is a symptom of stress, then you'll upset other people, and the next day you're going to have to send them flowers. And it's going to, hurt your bank account, and et cetera, okay? So, it's contagious. But, if those ignorant doctors that run the medical system are working their own medical students into severe illness and insanity, which is what I call it if you're hitting your kids, temporary insanity, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need head smack therapy, right? Because the way you're going to react to head smack therapy is the same way the kids are reacting to head smack or butt slap or, whatever slap. It's an obscenity and it needs to stop. It's against the laws of Jesus Christ and God and the Muslim religion and the Jewish religion. I don't care how people have perverted the message. We're going to get together and we're going to talk about it. Love your neighbor as yourself means if you don't want head slap therapy, don't give it to your kids. All right? If hitting a adult is assault, or is it battery, assault, then hitting a kid is assault. Period. So if you did it a long time ago, don't drag that around to justify that it's okay. All right? It was a mistake. You probably did 100 things right that made up for it, mostly. But the proof is that the majority of Americans are getting sick from toxic stress overload, and it starts at a young age. So Dr. Bruce Perry, I've been trying alone, without a dime, to fix this problem for over 20 years. You can watch my videos with Chaplain George Russell Barber from 2003. 11 hours with him, the last living chaplain who landed on Normandy Beach on D-Day. His men had to face a bunch of bullets in order to get the job done. In Nazi Germany, they had tanks on every corner. And they had people with machine guns in the newsrooms, okay? The story couldn't be broken. But now, out of these 100 celebrities in this chart, I guarantee you we can get 10 of them that'll come together for an event and break the story. So if I don't hear with you from within 48 hours, I'm going to consider that my message is not getting through. Somehow it's getting blocked. Okay, so in the last 20 years, I've experienced that many times, but the blockages are getting circumvented now. So please respond to this so that I know you got it with a short 1-minute video. So we can invite your daughter down to the Grand Canyon. Okay, we can all be the hero, but sharing with them the information. Over the last year that I've been talking to Kyle Gordon's family, 3 of his brothers, his sister-in-law, his mother, and his dad. 3 of the brothers and the sister-in-law have been arrested like 10 to 20 times cumulatively and put in jail for drug offenses. Alcohol, marijuana, and methamphetamines. So they're not getting the cure. They're not getting told and informed about the affliction. The leaders in the Hualapai tribe, 3,000 members, they think that putting people in jail is the answer. So his sister-in-law has a 3-year-old daughter. She's been in and out of jail 5 times in the last 3 years that I've been talking to her. This is abuse of the 3-year-old, okay? She was in jail. I called the mother-in-law. I could hear the girl crying, all right? She's separated from her mother. That's abuse. Her mother is taking 5 different drugs for anxiety, type 2 diabetes, depression. Her sister, just a year ago, died after 10 years of amphetamine addiction. She was on parole from her own tribe, and she was on the run and couldn't come back because they were going to arrest her for violating her parole. So all the 3 brothers and the sister-in-law, she died. Okay. Excuse me, I'm jumping around. The sister died of the sister-in-law. The sister-in-law, her great aunt, is my friend that I've known for 35 years. So they're all in the tribe. So 10% of the 3,000 Hualapai are in prison currently or on parole in Arizona and beyond. 300, that's 10%, over 300. They need to all get out. what I told Danny Trejo when I met with him over a week ago in person. So he's very discouraged and depressed and highly motivated to fix the prison system. So the prison system is an obscenity. It's disgusting. People talk about hell, that's it. There's no hell after we die. Hell is right there, and we're creating it. Some people are creating it by their own hand, others are creating it by turning a blind eye. So we turn our eyes upon it. There's a few people who have eyes, and their eyes can get 1 billion people to see the video. So Danny Trejo has 10 million Twitter and Facebook followers. Paris Hilton has 100 million or something. Bella Hadid and her sister have 100 million. Their best friend Taylor Swift has a couple 100 million. Taylor Swift, she's got 15 to 20 life-threatening stalkers out there. Every time she goes out of the house with her bodyguards, she has to wonder, is today the day they're going to get me from afar with a bullet or kidnap me or whatever? Like happened to Duffy, the famous singer, kidnapped and seriously raped and abused over a week. Okay? So that's what they're living with. Now their mom, Taylor Swift's mom, has cancer. You think the stress might be contributing to that cancer? You think it might be the primary cause? So, toxic stress overload. There's a massive amount of research at UCLA and elsewhere. Norman Cousins started that research 30 years ago. He endorsed my dad's book. You know all about him. He cured his illnesses with positive emotions. So just watch. There's a few key videos of Taylor Swift. She talks about what it's like to live in this altered reality. Wherever you go, people treat you like bizarrely, and you're under threat, you know, by a bunch of lunatics, which, you know, I think she'd be highly motivated. So we're breaking the story of what's the cause of all violence and what's the cure. So just the simple act. Osama bin Laden was able to be heard by, he figured out how to be heard by, what, 4 billion people? 2 of my friends recruited him. My friend from the CIA and his friend, Judy Lira. You know, they met him in 1979 here in LA. That's when they recruited him for the CIA. So I feel like, you know, I've studied him a little bit, all right? So if he could get the whole world's attention, we could do it about good news in a positive way. And that's the cure. That is the cure. It's not all the cure. It's the first step to the cure. But it's the most important step of the cure. And it's the step of the cure which results in the next and the next and the next step of the cure. You know what I'm saying? If you share with the entire planet, we're all afflicted with contagious post-traumatic stress, contagious toxic stress, and it's making us sick, making us depressed, making us miserable, and leading to an early grave in which we suffer along the way. It's the cause of all addictions, all violence, most physical illness, most mental illness. And I know I'm repeating myself. Okay? But I'm going to wrap it up. I am going to wrap it up in like 1 minute. How about that? 1 minute. One of the biggest problems is that certain people are in denial about the fact that it's affecting them, and therefore they feel highly demotivated to even make an effort. All right? They may make a little effort, but it's affecting all of us. So since stress is contagious, it affects all of our happiness. All right? Maybe you don't watch the news, okay? Like my dad wrote about in his book, like just avoid the news and that'll bring your stress down. Okay, maybe you do that. All right? But it still spreads. You know people that are suffering. If you're watching this, you know people who are suffering that you care about, and you have been unable to help them. And I can tell you why. It's because each one of those traumatized people is connected to 10 or 20 or 30 other super traumatized people. And so if you try to help one, unfortunately they're connected to 10 and it's contagious. So the only way to help the one is global healing. So that's what we're working on. Global healing. And I'm not the only one who believes in that. So Deepak Chopra has been talking about that for 20 years. Eckhart Tolle, both Oprah's friends. She's done 100 hours of work with them and events and seminars. So she believes in it too. All right? But the way to make it happen is to get really, 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 really serious, just like Osama bin Laden was. Can you get as serious as Osama bin Laden about making a difference, about being heard? We don't have to blow anything up. We don't have to blow ourselves up, okay? All we got to do is have a party, all right? We're going to have a party at the Palazzo di Amor. It's this empty, beautiful 25-acre estate. We're going to turn it into a headquarters for spreading the good news. I spoke to the billionaire owner, Jeff Green. He's down in Florida. Spoke to him twice. I may be repeating myself. Okay? He said it costs $100,000 a night. I said, well, we're doing this event about kids. Your friend built the thing. Mohammed Hadid. He's the architect and the builder. All right. His daughter, Bella, was diagnosed as having ADHD 10 years ago, put on amphetamines for 8 years. 2 years ago, she figured out, oh my God, I have post-traumatic stress. Something really bad happened in my childhood. I have total amnesia, just like I have. So because they put her on amphetamines, for the next 10 years, she was suicidal and super depressed. Earning millions of dollars as a supermodel, being on TV all the time, hanging out with Taylor Swift. In between, sobbing, crying, and she doesn't know why. Okay, I tried to break the story in 2008. There's a couple more stories I got to slip in here. Was it 2010? Christina, or is it Catherine? Catherine Schwarzenegger came out to Austin. She had written a book, and she was signing it. I attended it. It was only like about 6 people there, sitting around in a circle. Okay, she signed it. I told her, and I gave her 3 packages that I had prepared. Please give this to your dad. I try to share with the whole world that kids are getting misdiagnosed as having mental illnesses when they just have stress. Here's the chart. Okay, I wrote a cover letter that says, hey Arnold, my good friend knows you, Sohaila. You were her exercise trainer back in Austria. She knows you well. Big stack. I think I had 50 pages of research, including quotes of Dr. Bruce Perry and Dr. Figley and everybody. So, she took the 3 packages. 1 month later, Maria Shriver went to Arnold and said, I just heard there's going to be a news story about your love child. I want a divorce. So, I don't know if there's a connection, but he never talked about it. That was before Bella Hadid got diagnosed as having ADHD and put on drugs for the next 8 or 10 years. That was before Paris Hilton was diagnosed as having ADHD. She still thinks she has ADHD. She knows she has PTSD, Paris Hilton. She's been taking amphetamines for 10 years. That's probably why she couldn't get pregnant twice. She had to hire a surrogate twice after expensive and painful fertility treatments for months. So, she's going to be really happy to find out you don't have ADHD, you just have PTSD. And, here's the cure. What is the cure? Well, the cure we're going to talk about is Paris Hilton and 9 of her best friends. Bella Hadid, Gigi Hadid, maybe Taylor Swift. I got a whole chart of 100 people. I got 20 of her best friends who say they have post-traumatic stress or anxiety or depression. They're looking for the cure. So what I'm proposing is 10 of them come together and go through a month-long intensive healing program, just like Zachary Levi experienced. Maybe he can participate in it some way. So, Zachary Levi, I think I mentioned him. Let me briefly go through it again. Okay, super traumatized. His mom was super abusive. Broken family. Decade of unhealthy living, addictions, crazy living, depression. Became suicidal. A celebrity, super celebrity. He became suicidal. Went to a month-long intensive healing program about post-traumatic stress. Had a radical positive change. Wrote an autobiography about it. And now wants to share with the whole world exactly what I've been saying for 20 years. It appears that almost everybody on the planet has this, that's what it seems. If everybody learned about how to deal with it, the biggest secret on the planet, that's what I'm paraphrasing Zachary Levi. Okay, he writes it right there in his book. If everybody on the planet learns about this and deals with it, we could solve every other problem on the planet. That's what he wrote. Well, it's way more, Zachary Levi. So he has 60 acres in Austin. He wants to build a studio. He was just in a movie with Danny Trejo's cousin, Spy Kids producer, Robert Rodriguez. So around 2008, after I testified to the Texas state legislators about that girl I met in Starbucks who thought she had ADHD. Around the same year, I was going into Starbucks and I met Robert Rodriguez, 2 daughters, twins. Somehow they overheard what I was saying and they said, "Oh, we have ADHD." I'm really noisy. I say these things. Okay, I was probably talking to the girl at Starbucks, which I referred to in the 2008 testimony to the Senate, and they heard me, and they said, "We have ADHD, young girls in high school." And so I said, "Wow, here, check out this chart. It shows the symptoms are the same as stress." So I said, and I learned out who they were. Oh, my dad's Robert Rodriguez, and I looked it up. This super, super successful producer. So I said, "You could help me out. I want to get this news out to the whole world." So they gave me their phone number, and I called them about 3 or 4 or 5 times. Okay, I said, can I talk to your parents? Can you give them this stuff? We can create a documentary about it. And, 3 or 4 phone calls later, yeah, I gave it to them. They're busy. I can't remember what they said. It was negative. They wanted to help me, but their parents didn't, I think. It was, okay, and I lost my temper, all right? So I just, I got pissed off at her. I got pissed off at her or her parents, and I got angry, a little bit angry. Okay, and then I stopped calling her. Or she may have stopped answering, I don't remember. All right. I hope I didn't upset her. I was trying to I said I want to talk to your parents and do this documentary to share. Okay, I just recently looked, and around the same time they were diagnosed as ADHD, their parents had just gotten a divorce, or they were going through a divorce. You know, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but then the news report may be wrong. It said he had an affair with Rose McGowan. You know, my dad had a bunch of affairs. Definitely, I don't want to embarrass anybody. Maybe wrong, but they had a divorce, okay? So the kids may have been stressed out, all right? There's nothing wrong with that. When your parents are going through a divorce, oh, the cure for PTSD and ADHD, which is a myth, is family counseling, according to Dr. Figley. So if I had succeeded in being heard by the Texas senators at that time, the school system would have notified family members and kids and their parents. If your kids are getting D's and F's and they've been diagnosed as having ADHD or bipolar disorder, or it could just be stress. What's going on in your family? You need to have a stress evaluation. You know, you could design a simple program that says, what's going on in your life? Did anything ever happen to you? All right, and then spit out a stress score. So it's in my dad's book, published in 1984, and then we republished it around 2003. There's a list of things that if it's happening to you, it gives you a number. Like divorce is one of the highest numbers. Okay, so I was working with my dad at the time. He was there in Austin also, marketing his book. He was on the President's Physical Fitness Council. No, the Mayor's Physical Fitness Council. Okay, so physical fitness. We're trying to get the city fit. But it was very dysfunctional. They didn't talk much. Unfortunately, my dad was traumatized his whole life. He never got the cure or the treatment or any diagnosis. So he had these like resentments from the divorce. Like he blamed his ex-wife, my mom, and you know, it developed into anger at all of his kids. So unfortunately, we had this rift that I couldn't overcome until close to the end. All right. So my dad developed severe dementia as a result of post-traumatic stress, massive toxic overload. There's a list of doctors who say dementia is a symptom of toxic stress and unhealthy living. So I got one of the books here. USC professor wrote a whole book that says dementia is a symptom of stress, toxic stress overload. Like 95% of Americans get hypertension as they get older. And so it would be easy to say, you know, connect the dots between that and dementia. Then Dr. Dale Bredesen wrote 4 books, The Alzheimer's Cure, which says that toxic stress and too many traumatic experiences, the ACEs studies are mentioned. There's a whole chapter. Okay. Some people bitch because I make my videos too long, okay? I have watched hundreds of hours of videos to listen to all of these health experts. Why? Because I'm highly motivated. So the only way you can understand the cure is if you are highly motivated. That's the big answer. All right? The only way you can have the strength to be heard globally doesn't really require a lot of strength. It just requires a few phone calls. Hey, yeah, I'm in. It requires like the desire. For other people, it's this massive effort, okay, to become like motivated. All right, for me, it's like once you have it, it's just like effortless. So, but now, before my mom dies, before my brother, my sister, my nieces, they have the condition. Now. We got to do it now. If I seem angry, it's not at you. Don't take it personally. Okay? It's called intensity. If you can't get angry at the problem, if you can't get angry at the people that are blocking the solution, then you'll never have the strength to be heard. So, Dr. Perry, what happened to your wife? Okay, that motivates you. That must have been your motivation these years on this issue, okay? But the people out there that are afflicted with that condition, that's like scale of 1 to 100, 90, that's like a 90 score of severe post-traumatic stress. And I sincerely believe that by coming together and sharing the cure, that even they will get it eventually. All right? I'd like to have that conversation with you and with your friends and your colleagues, and I'd like to try. So, we could try, right? All I'm talking about is all of your efforts with 10, 20, 30, 100 super celebrities so that your simple efforts are heard by 8 billion people instead of just a few 100,000 or a couple million here or there. So you wrote the book, okay? It needs to be required reading by every teacher, every doctor, every nurse, every person in the medical system, and offered reading like a free book to everybody with hypertension, everybody with obesity, all of those illnesses which have been identified in the ACEs studies. And we're going to put that information in primetime TV. All right? It's an invitation. Thank you very much for your incredible work. It says in the Bible, nobody lights a candle and sticks it under a bushel. Or how does it go? Nobody lights a candle and sticks it under a bed. Nobody lights a candle and sticks it in a hole. You keep lighting these candles with these incredible ideas. We got to light a candle in a way that gets the whole world's attention. Right? And you got a list. So if I don't hear from you in a couple days, I'm going to work really hard with Tracy Reiner to get through to Rob Reiner. Make sure you get the link to this video. And so I just am sure that you got it, that you're starting to watch it. Thank you very much.